As twilight descends and the world begins to soften into evening, let us journey together through the quiet wonders of the natural world. Close your eyes if you wish, and simply listen as we explore the gentle rhythms that have carried life forward for millions of years. Fact 1. We begin in the forest, where trees are speaking to one another in a language older than words. Beneath the soil, an intricate network of fungal threads connects tree roots in what scientists call the wood wide web. Through these delicate filaments, trees share nutrients with their neighbors, and a mother tree can even recognize her own offspring, sending them extra sugar and resources to help them grow strong. Fact 2. In this underground community, older trees act as guardians of the young. When a towering elder detects that seedlings are struggling in its shadow, it reduces its own leaf density, allowing more sunlight to filter through to the forest floor below. This quiet act of generosity happens in slow motion, over seasons and years, a patient kindness written into the very nature of the woods. Fact 3. Above ground, as evening settles, fireflies begin their gentle dance. These soft lights floating through the summer air are actually precise love letters written in bioluminescence. Each species of firefly has its own unique flash pattern, a specific rhythm and duration, and females watch from the grass below, waiting for the exact sequence that matches their kind. It's a conversation of light, completely silent, completely perfect. Fact 4. Not far away, in a meadow touched by moonlight, flowers are preparing for sleep. Many blossoms follow a circadian rhythm just as we do, and as darkness falls, certain petals fold closed in a phenomenon called nyctinasty. Tulips, crocuses, and evening primroses all respond to the fading light, protecting their precious pollen through the cool night hours. They're resting, just as you might be now. Fact 5. Near the meadow's edge, a stream moves over smooth stones with its endless, soothing whisper. This water has journeyed from high mountain springs, and here's something remarkable: water has memory in its journey. As it flows, water molecules form temporary bonds, creating fleeting structures that respond to their environment. Though these clusters last only fractions of a second, the water carries with it the story of every stone, every mineral, every living thing it has touched along its path. Fact 6. In that same stream, if you could look closely, you might find moss growing on the shaded rocks. Moss is one of Earth's most ancient plants, largely unchanged for over 400 million years. It has no roots, no flowers, no seeds in the traditional sense. Instead, it simply is absorbing water directly through its leaves, asking for almost nothing, thriving in the quiet, damp places of the world. There's something deeply peaceful in its simplicity. Fact 7. As true darkness arrives, the stars emerge, and with them come the night pollinators. While bees rest, moths take over the essential work of pollination. These soft, silent flyers are drawn to pale, fragrant flowers that bloom only at night: jasmine, moonflower, evening primrose. The moths navigate by the moon's light, and some species can detect a single flower's scent from over a mile away, following an invisible thread of fragrance through the darkness. Fact 8. High above the moths, in the deeper darkness, migrating birds are passing overhead. Many birds navigate at night using the Earth's magnetic field, which they sense through specialized proteins in their eyes. They can literally see magnetic fields as patterns of light and shadow overlaying their vision. Imagine perceiving the world not just as it appears, but as invisible rivers of energy flowing from pole to pole. This is how these travelers find their way home across thousands of miles. Fact 9. And speaking of journeys, there's something extraordinary happening in the ocean at this very moment. Every single night, in the largest migration on Earth, Billions of tiny sea creatures rise from the deep ocean toward the surface to feed, then descend again before dawn. This vertical journey, called diel migration, moves more biomass than any other daily event on the planet. It happens in darkness, unseen, a vast ballet performed in the mysterious depths while we sleep on shore. These are the quiet miracles unfolding around us, always, whether we notice them or not. The world continues its ancient patterns, and we are part of this great, gentle rhythm. As our journey through the peaceful hours deepens, we find ourselves drawn to the quiet corners of the world where life moves slowly, deliberately, with a wisdom that comes only from patience. Fact 10. Let us visit the ancient forests, where some of the oldest living beings on Earth stand in silent meditation. There are bristlecone pine trees in California's White Mountains that have been growing for over 5,000 years. They were already ancient when the pyramids were built, already weathered and wise. These trees grow so slowly in their harsh, high-altitude home that their wood becomes incredibly dense, so dense that harmful fungi and insects cannot penetrate it. Their secret to longevity is simple: they take their time. Fact 11. In these mountains, as in all wild places, the air itself tells a story. After rain falls on soil and stone, a distinctive earthy scent rises up, that fresh, peaceful smell we all recognize. This aroma has a name: petrichor. It comes from oils that plants release during dry periods, which accumulate on rocks and earth. When rain arrives, these oils are released into the air along with a compound called geosmin, produced by soil bacteria. This scent we find so calming is actually the Earth's way of celebrating water, a fragrance of gratitude. Fact 12. Speaking of rain, each raindrop that falls is on its own small adventure. As it descends through the atmosphere, a single raindrop can take anywhere from 2 minutes to 20 minutes to reach the ground, depending on its size and the wind. And here's something wonderful: raindrops aren't shaped like teardrops at all. Small ones are nearly perfect spheres, while larger ones flatten on the bottom as they fall, becoming more like tiny hamburger buns floating gently down through the sky. Fact 13. When these raindrops finally reach a forest, they're caught by leaves in the canopy, and something magical happens in slow motion. Trees can hold enormous amounts of water on their leaves and bark. A single large oak tree can intercept and store over 100 gallons of rainwater during a storm. This water evaporates slowly back into the air over hours and days, creating a cool, humid microclimate beneath the branches. Forests make their own weather, breathing moisture back into the world in an endless, peaceful exchange. Fact 14. Beneath these same trees, you might find mushrooms emerging from the leaf litter, and these curious organisms live in a realm between plant and animal. Unlike plants, they cannot make their own food from sunlight. Instead, they digest the world around them, secreting enzymes that break down dead wood and leaves, then absorbing the nutrients. A mushroom is just the fruit of a much larger organism, the mycelium, that spreads through the soil like an invisible net. Some of these fungal networks can be thousands of years old, quietly recycling the forest, turning death back into life. Fact 15. As we move toward water, we find ourselves beside a pond where dragonflies hover on translucent wings. These ancient hunters have been perfecting their flight for over 300 million years, long before birds took to the sky. A dragonfly can fly in any direction, forward, backward, sideways, and can rotate each of its 4 wings independently. When hunting, they calculate the trajectory of their prey and intercept it with 95% accuracy. Yet despite this precision, there's something deeply peaceful about watching them drift and dart over still water on a summer afternoon. Fact 16. In that pond lives another master of patience, the lotus flower. Lotus seeds have the longest viability of any flowering plant. They can lie dormant in dried lake beds for over 1,000 years, waiting for water to return. When conditions are finally right, these ancient seeds will sprout and bloom as if no time has passed at all. The lotus also has a remarkable ability to regulate its own temperature, keeping its flowers warm even on cool mornings, creating a comfortable haven for the insects that pollinate it. It emerges pristine from muddy water, teaching us something about rising above our circumstances. Fact 17. As evening deepens around our pond, we might hear the chorus of frogs beginning their twilight song. Each frog species has its own distinct call, and males sing not just to attract mates, but to establish territory and communicate with their neighbors. But here's something tender. In a chorus of frogs, individuals actually listen to each other and adjust their timing. They take turns, creating a rhythm together, each one waiting for a gap in the symphony to add their voice. It's a collaborative music, an instinctive courtesy, a natural respect for the space others need to be heard. In the gathering darkness, these small wonders remind us that patience and gentleness are woven into the very fabric of life. The world knows how to rest, how to wait, how to move in harmony with itself. As night deepens and stars will slowly overhead, we turn our attention to the smaller worlds within worlds, where the tiniest creatures carry out their lives with quiet purpose and unexpected grace. Fact 18. Consider the humble earthworm, moving through darkness beneath our feet. These gentle gardeners of the soil have no eyes, no lungs, no real voice, yet they are architects of incredible importance. As they tunnel through the earth, they can move through soil that's tightly compacted, creating channels that allow air and water to penetrate deep below the surface. Charles Darwin spent 39 years studying earthworms and calculated that in a single acre of garden, earthworms bring up over 18 tons of soil to the surface each year, slowly, steadily turning the earth inside out. They work in darkness, asking nothing, renewing everything. Fact 19. Above ground, in the branches, another nighttime miracle is unfolding. Bats are emerging from their roosts, and despite their reputation, they are creatures of remarkable gentleness. A single little brown bat can eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes in just 1 hour, protecting us while we sleep. Mother bats are devoted parents. They nurse their young for months, and when they return to a cave holding millions of other bats, they can identify their own baby by its unique voice and scent among the countless others. In the chaos of the colony, a mother always finds her child. Fact 20. As these bats fly through the night, they navigate using echolocation, sending out sounds too high for human ears to detect and listening for the echoes that bounce back. But here's something astonishing. Bats don't just hear these echoes, they form mental images from sound, essentially seeing the world through their ears. They can detect a single mosquito from several feet away and distinguish between different types of insects by the texture of their wings. Sound becomes sight, darkness becomes clear, and what seems like limitation reveals itself as a different kind of gift. Fact 21. While bats hunt overhead, down at ground level, a hedgehog shuffles through the underbrush on its nightly rounds. These small, peaceful creatures have been largely unchanged for 15 million years. When threatened, they curl into a perfect ball, their 5,000 to 7,000 spines creating an impenetrable armor. But here's what's truly touching. A mother hedgehog, called a sow, is so devoted to her young that she will carry each baby, one by one, to a new nest if she senses danger, making multiple trips through the night to ensure every hoglet reaches safety. She never leaves one behind. Fact 22. In the garden where our hedgehog forages, Spider webs glisten with dew in the moonlight. Spider silk is one of nature's most extraordinary materials, stronger than steel by weight, yet incredibly elastic. A strand of spider silk can stretch to 140% of its original length without breaking. Some spiders produce 7 different types of silk, each for a specific purpose: one for wrapping prey, another for creating egg sacs, another for the web's framework. They are artists and engineers combined, spinning from their own bodies the structures that will sustain their lives. Each web is both a trap and a home, both functional and, in its way, beautiful. Fact 23. Near the web, perhaps on a leaf, you might find a sleeping butterfly. Butterflies need to rest just as we do, and when they sleep, they hang underneath leaves or tuck themselves into bark crevices to stay hidden. Their wings close above their backs, revealing the often camouflaged undersides that protect them through the vulnerable night. Some species return to the exact same sleeping spot every evening, a tiny bedroom they've chosen in the vast world. In the morning, they must warm their wings in the sunlight before they can fly. They literally cannot take flight until they've been touched by the sun's warmth. Fact 24. As dawn begins to think about approaching, still hours away, the ocean continues its eternal rhythm. On distant shores, sea turtles who hatched decades ago are finding their way home. Female sea turtles return to the very same beach where they were born to lay their own eggs, sometimes traveling thousands of miles to reach it. Scientists believe they navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, imprinted on their consciousness during those first vulnerable moments when they scrambled from nest to sea as hatchlings. They carry a map in their hearts, a memory of home written in magnetism and starlight, calling them back across endless blue. Fact 25. And in those same warm waters where sea turtles swim, coral reefs are breathing slowly through the night. Though they appear to be stone, corals are actually colonies of thousands of tiny animals called polyps. At night, these polyps extend their tentacles to feed, transforming the reef into a garden of reaching arms. Corals grow at a pace so slow it defies our human understanding of time. Some massive coral formations are over 4,000 years old, adding perhaps half an inch to their diameter each year. They are cities built by the smallest of creatures, monuments to patience, proof that the smallest efforts, sustained over time, can create something vast and enduring. As we move through this quiet hour, we're reminded that life persists in countless forms, each finding its own way to thrive, to protect what matters, to navigate by invisible stars toward home. In the deepest part of night, when the world seems to hold its breath between darkness and dawn, we discover that even in stillness, there is movement. Even in silence, there are songs we've never learned to hear. Fact 26. High in the mountains, where the air grows thin and cold, alpine plants have learned the art of survival through cooperation. Cushion plants, those dense, rounded mounds that dot rocky slopes, grow in a formation that creates a warmer microclimate within their center. Other plants take root in this protected space, and the cushion plant welcomes them. Studies have shown that these nurse plants actually have higher survival rates when they shelter other species. By protecting others, they protect themselves. Competition gives way to community, and in the harshest environments, gentleness becomes a survival strategy. Fact 27. Descending from those heights into alpine meadows, we find fields of wildflowers that bloom in waves throughout the season. Each species has its moment, its time to unfold. But flowers do something remarkable that we're only beginning to understand. They communicate through electrical signals. When a bee lands on a flower, it changes the flower's electrical field, and this change can be detected by the next bee that approaches. Flowers tell bees what they need to know, whether nectar has recently been collected, whether a visit would be worthwhile. It's a conversation in voltage, invisible kindness between species separated by kingdoms of evolution. Fact 28. Among these meadows, you might spot a rabbit sitting perfectly still in the fading light. Rabbits have nearly 360-degree vision. Their eyes are positioned on the sides of their heads, allowing them to watch for danger from almost every direction without moving. But there's a blind spot directly in front of their nose, which is why they approach food carefully, turning their heads to examine it from the side. They live in a world of constant vigilance, yet they still take time to play, to groom each other, to rest in the sun. Even weariness cannot extinguish joy. Fact 29. As twilight deepens, owls begin their silent patrol. An owl's flight is almost completely soundless, one of nature's most remarkable adaptations. The leading edge of their wing feathers has a comb-like structure that breaks up the air turbulence, while the trailing edge has soft fringes that dampen sound. The surface of their feathers has a velvety texture that absorbs the last whispers of noise. All of this allows them to fly in total silence, hearing every rustle and movement below. They move through the air like thoughts, like whispered secrets, like shadows with purpose. Fact 30. In the forest where these owls hunt, tree bark tells stories written in rings and ridges. Each tree species has distinctive bark, a signature as unique as a fingerprint. But bark is not just a tree's skin, it's armor, insulation, and a living interface with the world. Some trees, like the paper birch, shed their bark in thin layers, which helps prevent moss and lichen from taking hold. Others, like cork oaks, develop bark so thick it can protect them from fire. The oldest bristlecone pines have bark twisted and sculpted by thousands of years of wind, each groove a record of storms weathered and survived. Fact 31. Beneath these trees, in the leaf litter, salamanders are beginning their slow nocturnal wandering. These amphibians breathe partially through their skin, which must stay moist to absorb oxygen. On humid nights, they venture farther from their hiding places, exploring the forest floor with ancient grace. Some species of salamander have no lungs at all, they breathe entirely through their skin and the lining of their mouth. They've simplified themselves, returned to an older way of being. There's something profound in this. They found that they could let go of what others needed, that their own path required less, not more. Fact 32. As we move toward water once more, we find ourselves beside a stream where salmon are making their incredible journey upstream. These fish were born in these very waters years ago, traveled thousands of miles to the ocean, and now they're returning home to spawn. They navigate using their sense of smell, following the unique chemical signature of their birth stream through hundreds of miles of river. Their bodies transform as they swim, their shape changes, their color deepens, they stop eating entirely, burning through their own stored energy in complete devotion to reaching home. They give everything to return to their beginning, to ensure the next generation starts where they did. Fact 33. In quieter waters nearby, water striders dance across the surface as if gravity were merely a suggestion. These insects are so light, and their legs are so carefully designed, that they rest on the surface tension of water without breaking through. Thousands of tiny hairs on their legs trap air, making them unsinkable. They can sense vibrations through the water's surface, the struggle of an insect that's fallen in, the approach of a predator from below. They read the water like a book written in ripples, and they've been doing so for over 50 million years, a ballet of balance and awareness performed on the thinnest of stages. In this hour of deep night, we've witnessed how life finds ways to speak without words, to see without eyes, to survive not through strength alone but through adaptation, through cooperation, through the wisdom of knowing when to let go and when to hold on. As the night reaches its quietest depth, that still point between midnight and morning, we turn our attention to the ways nature finds light in darkness, warmth in cold, and connection across distances that seem impossible to bridge. Fact 34. In the darkest depths of the ocean, where sunlight has never reached, creatures have learned to make their own light. Bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions, has evolved independently at least 40 times in ocean dwellers. Some jellyfish pulse with gentle blue light, their bells glowing like slowly beating hearts. Others, like the anglerfish, dangle a luminous lure to attract prey in the absolute darkness. But perhaps most beautiful are the ostracod crustaceans, tiny creatures that release clouds of glowing blue chemicals into the water when disturbed, creating underwater galaxies, brief constellations that bloom and fade in the black water, reminding us that even in the deepest darkness, life finds ways to shine. Fact 35. Closer to shore, in tidal pools revealed by the retreating sea, anemones wait with patient grace. These flower-like animals are actually predators, their tentacles armed with thousands of microscopic harpoons that fire venom into passing fish. Yet clownfish swim among these tentacles unharmed, protected by a special mucus coating that the anemone recognizes as its own. In exchange for this shelter, the clownfish chases away butterfly fish that would eat the anemone, and even brings it food. Two completely different creatures, one that could easily harm the other, instead choosing partnership. Trust, even among predators, is possible. Fact 36. On the shore above these tidal pools, ghost crabs emerge from their burrows in the sand. These pale creatures are most active at night, scuttling sideways across the beach with remarkable speed. They can move at nearly 6.5 feet per second. But here's what makes them truly extraordinary. They return to the ocean regularly to wet their gills, yet they've adapted so well to land that they can drown if kept underwater too long. They exist in the space between worlds, belonging fully to neither sea nor shore, yet thriving in that in-between place. Sometimes the threshold itself becomes home. Fact 37. Further inland, in meadows touched by starlight, a phenomenon is quietly unfolding. Many flowers actually close their petals at night and reopen them with the dawn, but they're not simply responding to light, they're following an internal clock. Scientists have discovered that plants have circadian rhythms just like animals do, controlled by genes that regulate their daily cycles. Even if you keep a plant in constant darkness, it will continue to open and close its flowers at the appropriate times, following the memory of day and night written into its very cells. The rhythm of the world becomes the rhythm of the self, and even in artificial conditions, the ancient pattern persists. Fact 38. Among these flowers, if we could see in the ultraviolet spectrum as bees do, the night would reveal hidden messages. Many flowers have patterns invisible to human eyes, nectar guides painted in ultraviolet light that point insects toward their reward. To a bee, a simple yellow flower becomes an illuminated runway, marked with landing patterns and directional arrows. We walk through a world covered in signs and signals we cannot perceive, an entire layer of communication happening just beyond the range of our senses. Beauty has more dimensions than we know. Fact 39. In nearby woodland, a badger emerges from its set, an underground home that may have been used by generations of badgers for hundreds of years. These creatures are fastidiously clean, regularly bringing in fresh bedding materials and even designating specific areas away from their set as latrines. A family of badgers will work together to maintain their home, digging new chambers, reinforcing tunnels, renovating and expanding. Some sets have been continuously occupied for centuries, passed down through countless generations. Home is not just a place but a legacy, carefully tended and lovingly maintained, a gift from ancestors to descendants not yet born. Fact 40. Above the badger's woodland home, bats are still hunting, and some have formed unexpected friendships. Vampire bats, despite their fearsome reputation, are among the most altruistic mammals on Earth. When a bat fails to find food on a given night, which happens frequently, other bats will regurgitate blood to share with the hungry individual. They remember who has helped them in the past and reciprocate, forming bonds of mutual support that can last for years. They keep track of debts and kindnesses, and they ostracize bats who take but never give. Even creatures that drink blood understand the importance of community, of sharing, of looking after one another through lean times. Fact 41. As the first hint of dawn begins to lighten the eastern sky, still more promise than reality, birds are preparing for their morning chorus. But they don't all sing at once. There's an order to the dawn chorus, with different species beginning at different light levels. Blackbirds and robins start in the deepest darkness, while finches and sparrows wait for more light. Each species has its preferred time, its own moment in the symphony. Scientists believe this timing may have evolved to reduce competition. Each bird gets its turn to be heard clearly without being drowned out by others. Even in nature's grand performances, there is courtesy, there is turn-taking, there is space made for every voice. In these quiet hours before dawn, we've seen how life creates its own light, how creatures find partnership in unlikely places, how the rhythms of the cosmos become written into the smallest living things. The night is not empty, it's full of purpose, full of connection, full of small acts of kindness and cooperation. As night begins its gentle retreat and the world prepares for transformation, we find ourselves in that liminal space where darkness and light meet, where the day creatures still sleep and the night creatures prepare to rest. This is the hour of transitions, of quiet preparations, of nature's patient unfolding. Fact 42. In the pre-dawn stillness, spiderwebs are becoming visible, each one adorned with tiny droplets of dew. These droplets don't form randomly, they arrange themselves in perfectly even spacing along each strand of silk, like pearls on a necklace. This happens because of surface tension and the unique properties of spider silk. Some silks are covered in a special waxy coating that causes water to bead up at regular intervals. Each web becomes a temporary piece of jewelry, transforming a hunting tool into art. The spider neither plans this beauty nor appreciates it, yet creates it nonetheless. Purpose and beauty need not be separate things. Fact 43. Beneath these webs, in the soil, an entire world is waking. In just 1 teaspoon of healthy soil, there are more living organisms than there are people on Earth: bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, all working together to break down organic matter and create the foundation for life above ground. These microscopic communities communicate through chemical signals, forming networks as complex as any human city. They've been doing this work for billions of years, quietly, invisibly, asking nothing. Every plant, every tree, every flower depends on these invisible workers. The smallest among us sustain the largest. Fact 44. As the soil dwellers continue their ancient work, somewhere in the awakening forest, a deer is standing perfectly still, listening. A deer's ears can rotate independently of each other, like satellite dishes, allowing them to pinpoint sounds from different directions simultaneously. They can hear frequencies that humans cannot, detecting the high-pitched alarm calls of chipmunks and birds. But despite this acute hearing, deer also rely on stillness as their primary defense, the ability to freeze so completely that they seem to disappear into the landscape. Sometimes the best response to fear is not flight, but absolute presence, absolute awareness, absolute calm. Fact 45. Near where the deer stands, lichen grows on the trunk of an old oak tree. Lichen is not a single organism but a partnership, a symbiosis between fungus and algae or cyanobacteria. The fungus provides structure and protection, while the algae or bacteria photosynthesize, creating food for both. Some lichens are among the oldest living things on Earth, growing less than a millimeter per year, with certain specimens estimated to be over 9,000 years old. They can survive being completely dried out for months or even years, then spring back to life when water returns. They are proof that partnership can create something more resilient than either individual could ever be alone. Fact 46. As light begins to touch the treetops, photosynthesis is preparing to begin its daily miracle. Plants take in carbon dioxide, a waste product that we exhale with every breath, and combine it with water and sunlight to create sugar and oxygen. The oxygen we breathe, the food we eat, the very possibility of animal life on Earth all stem from this quiet alchemy happening in every green leaf. A single large tree can produce enough oxygen in 1 year to supply 2 people with breathable air. Trees are not just part of our environment, they are the reason our environment can support us. We breathe out, they breathe in, and the circle continues, unbroken, unmarked by ceremony, essential as a heartbeat. Fact 47. In the growing light, butterflies are beginning to stir from their nighttime rest. Before they can fly, they must warm their flight muscles to at least 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Some species bask with their wings spread to absorb sunlight, while others rapidly vibrate their wings to generate heat through movement. Darker-colored butterflies can warm up faster than pale ones, absorbing more solar radiation. They literally cannot rise until they've been warmed by the sun. They are bound to the rhythms of heat and light, unable to force their way forward until the conditions are right. There is wisdom in waiting for the right moment, for the proper warmth, for readiness to emerge naturally. Fact 48. As butterflies prepare for flight, somewhere in the distance, a river is carving its ancient path through stone. Rivers don't force their way through obstacles, they find the path of least resistance, flowing around rocks, following the contours of the land. Yet given enough time, this gentle persistence carves canyons thousands of feet deep. The Colorado River created the Grand Canyon not through force but through constancy, removing 1 grain of sand at a time over millions of years. Water teaches us that softness sustained over time can reshape even the hardest stone. Gentleness is not weakness, it is simply strength distributed across a longer timeline. Fact 49. Near this river, cottonwood trees are preparing for their own daily rhythm. Like all trees, they draw water from the soil through their roots and release it through their leaves in a process called transpiration. A large cottonwood can transpire hundreds of gallons of water per day, pulling it up from depths of 50 feet or more. This water movement creates a cooling effect. A grove of trees can be 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding area. Trees are not just drawing water for themselves, they're conditioning the air, creating shade, making the world around them more livable for countless other creatures. In taking care of themselves, they take care of everything nearby. As dawn approaches, painting the sky with its first tentative colors, we've witnessed how beauty emerges from function, how the smallest beings sustain the largest, how patience and gentleness can achieve what force cannot. The world is preparing to wake, but it does so slowly, honoring the transition, respecting the gradual shift from darkness to light. The eastern horizon now glows with the softest light, neither night nor day but something in between, a gentle promise that change is coming, that rest will give way to waking, that every ending carries within it a new beginning. Fact 50. In this tender pre-dawn light, the ocean is experiencing its own quiet transformation. Twice each day, the moon's gravitational pull creates the tides, drawing water toward it in a rhythm that has persisted for billions of years. But the moon is slowly drifting away from Earth about 1.5 inches farther each year. Billions of years ago, the moon was much closer, and the tides were dramatically higher and more frequent. The dance between Earth and Moon is slowly, imperceptibly changing, yet for now, for our lifetimes and countless lifetimes to come, the tides will continue their reliable rhythm. Some changes happen so gradually that constancy and transformation become the same thing. Fact 51. On beaches touched by these tides, tiny mole crabs are emerging from the sand. These small creatures, no bigger than a thumb, have perfected the art of riding waves. As each wave recedes, they pop out of the sand, rebury themselves a few feet higher or lower on the beach, constantly adjusting their position to stay in the zone where the waves break. They face backward, filtering food from the water with feathery antennae. An entire life spent in the tumult where water meets land, yet they've found perfect peace there, moving with the rhythm rather than against it, making the turbulent zone their home. Fact 52. Above the beach, seabirds are gathering for the day's first fishing. Pelicans fly in formation, often in a single-file line just above the waves. When one pelican flaps its wings, it creates an updraft that makes flying easier for the bird behind it. By taking turns at the front position, the whole flock can fly farther and use less energy than any bird could flying alone. They've discovered that leadership is not a permanent position but a rotating responsibility, that those who benefit from others' efforts must take their turn at the difficult work, that fairness emerges naturally when creatures must rely on one another. Fact 53. As these birds fly over coastal waters, beneath them dolphins are traveling in their own groups, called pods. Dolphins sleep in a remarkable way, only one half of their brain rests at a time, while the other half remains alert. This allows them to continue swimming and surfacing to breathe even while sleeping. One eye closes while the other stays open, watching for predators, monitoring the pod. They never experience the complete vulnerability of total unconsciousness. Part of them is always present, always protecting. Even in rest, there is vigilance, but it's a vigilance that allows rest to happen, that makes peace possible without abandoning safety. Fact 54. In deeper waters, whales are singing songs that travel hundreds of miles through the ocean. Humpback whales compose complex songs that can last up to 20 minutes and be repeated for hours. All the males in a population sing roughly the same song, but the song slowly changes over time. New phrases are added, old ones are dropped, the arrangement shifts. Within a single season, the song evolves, and all the whales somehow learn and incorporate these changes. It's a cultural transmission, a shared creativity, a composition that belongs not to any individual but to the community. The song is always changing, yet it's always recognizably the song of that particular group. Identity persists through transformation. Fact 55. Back on land, in alpine regions where night still lingers a bit longer, pikas are beginning their day. These small relatives of rabbits live in rocky mountain terrain and spend their summers harvesting grasses and wildflowers, which they dry in the sun to create hay piles for winter. A single pika may gather enough vegetation to fill a bathtub. They don't hibernate, so these hay piles sustain them through long, harsh winters. Pikas are so well adapted to cold that they can actually overheat and die if exposed to temperatures above 78 degrees Fahrenheit for too long. As the climate warms, they're being forced to higher and higher elevations, running out of mountain. They remind us that every creature has its range, its conditions for thriving, and that when those conditions shift, there is sometimes nowhere left to go. Fact 56. In the meadows below these mountain slopes, a different kind of preparation is happening. Bees are about to begin their daily work, but before they do, scout bees must find food sources and report back to the hive. They do this through the waggle dance, a figure-8 pattern that communicates both the direction and distance to flowers. The angle of the dance relative to the sun indicates direction, while the duration of the waggle portion indicates distance. It's a symbolic language, an abstract representation of space and direction, created by creatures with brains smaller than a grain of rice. Intelligence takes many forms, and wisdom is not measured by brain size but by effectiveness, by the ability to share what matters, to guide others toward what they need. Fact 57. As the sun's first rays finally break over the horizon, the world responds with a symphony of color. Flowers begin to open, but they don't all respond to the same trigger. Some open in response to light, others to temperature, and some to a combination of both. Morning glories, as their name suggests, open in the early morning and close by afternoon. 4 o'clock open in late afternoon. Night blooming cereus opens only after dark. Each species has found its moment, its specific window of time when its pollinators are most active, when conditions are optimal for reproduction. The day is not a single thing but a series of overlapping moments, each belonging to different communities of life, each with its own schedule, its own purpose, its own time to shine. As the sun rises and the world prepares to fully wake, we've journeyed through the ways creatures adapt to their environment, how they communicate across distances and species, how they prepare for challenges yet to come. Day is arriving, but our peaceful journey continues, for there is no hard line between night and day, only a gradual, beautiful transition. Dawn has arrived in full, painting the world in soft golds and gentle pinks. The night has given way, but its lessons remain with us. As we move through this hour of awakening, we discover that morning itself holds its own quiet wonders, its own invitations to slow down and observe. Fact 58. In the fresh morning air, spider silk glistens with extraordinary strength and beauty. But spiders don't just create one type of silk, they are master weavers with multiple silk glands, each producing silk with different properties. The dragline silk that forms the web's framework is stronger than Kevlar, yet the spiral threads that catch prey are coated with sticky droplets that remain liquid and elastic. Some spiders recycle their webs each day, consuming the old silk and digesting it to reclaim the protein, then spinning fresh webs each evening. Nothing is wasted. What served yesterday becomes the material for tomorrow's creation. Destruction and creation are not opposites but partners in an endless cycle. Fact 59. As dew evaporates from these webs, nearby leaves are already hard at work. Through their pores, called stomata, plants breathe, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. But these pores also release water vapor, and the plant must balance its need for carbon dioxide with the risk of losing too much water. So plants open their stomata when conditions are favorable and close them during the hottest parts of the day. Each leaf is making thousands of tiny decisions, responding to light, temperature, and humidity, adjusting moment by moment. Intelligence is not always conscious. Sometimes it's simply responsiveness, the ability to sense and adapt, to know without thinking when to open and when to close. Fact 60. In the warming light, cold-blooded creatures are seeking the sun's touch. Lizards emerge from crevices to bask on rocks, orienting their bodies to maximize the surface area exposed to sunlight. They cannot generate their own body heat, so they borrow it from the world around them. But this isn't a limitation, it's an efficiency. Warm-blooded animals must eat constantly to maintain their body temperature, burning fuel even while resting. Lizards need far less food because they're not fighting to maintain a constant internal temperature. They've learned to work with the world's rhythms rather than against them, to accept what's given rather than constantly producing what's needed. Fact 61. In gardens touched by morning light, snails are leaving silvery trails as they glide along on their single muscular foot. The mucus they secrete serves multiple purposes. It reduces friction, protects their soft bodies from rough surfaces, and even helps them stick to vertical surfaces. A snail can crawl along the edge of a razor blade without being cut because this slime protects it so effectively. They carry their homes on their backs, moving at a pace that seems almost meditative. When threatened, they withdraw completely into their shells and wait. There is no rushing a snail, no hurrying its journey. It moves at the only speed it knows, the speed that keeps it safe, and somehow it always arrives exactly when it needs to. Fact 62. Above the snail's garden, the morning air is filling with birdsong, and within this chorus, parent birds are feeding their young. A pair of blue tits may make over 1,000 feeding trips to their nest in a single day during the peak of the breeding season. They remember the faces of their neighbors and can distinguish between birds who pose a threat to their nest and those who don't. They'll mob a predator aggressively but tolerate harmless species nearby. Exhausting themselves to feed their young, making countless trips from dawn to dusk, they embody a love that requires no words, no recognition, no reward beyond the survival of the next generation. Fact 63. In the branches where these birds nest, leaves are performing another quiet miracle. Each leaf is oriented to capture sunlight, but trees also ensure that leaves are arranged so they don't completely shade each other, a phenomenon called crown shyness. When you look up through a forest canopy, you can sometimes see channels of sky between the crowns of neighboring trees, as if the trees are respectfully maintaining distance from one another. Some scientists believe this happens because branches that touch are damaged by wind, so trees have learned to leave space. Others think it maximizes light capture for the entire forest. Either way, the result is the same. Even as they reach for the sky, trees leave room for their neighbors to reach as well. Fact 64. Beneath these considerate trees, ferns are unfurling their new fronds in the dappled light. Ferns reproduce not through flowers and seeds but through spores, tiny, dust-like particles that are among the most ancient reproductive strategies on Earth. A single fern frond can produce millions of spores, released into the air to drift on wind currents, waiting for the exact conditions needed to germinate. Most will never find suitable conditions. They will drift and fall and disappear. But it only takes one to succeed, one to find moist ground and filtered light, to begin the cycle again. There is a kind of faith in this, sending out millions of possibilities, knowing most will fail, trusting that one will find its way home. Fact 65. As the morning progresses, in streams and ponds, dragonfly nymphs are living out their underwater youth. These creatures spend months or even years as aquatic predators before emerging as the graceful flyers we see skimming over water. When the time finally comes, a nymph crawls out of the water onto a reed or rock, its skin splits open, and the adult dragonfly pulls itself free, leaving behind a perfect hollow shell of its former self. Its wings unfold and harden in the sun, and within hours, it takes its first flight. The transformation is total, from water breather to air breather, from crawling predator to aerial acrobat. It cannot go back. The old form is abandoned completely. Sometimes growth requires leaving behind not just who we were, but the entire element in which we lived. The morning has fully arrived now, and the world is awake and moving. We've witnessed how creatures transform, how they balance competing needs, how they care for their young and make space for their neighbors. Day has come, But the peaceful wisdom of these natural rhythms continues. As morning light grows stronger and the world settles into the rhythm of day, we find ourselves exploring the ways nature builds, creates, and maintains the delicate balance that allows countless forms of life to flourish side by side in harmony. Fact 66. In forests now fully illuminated by morning sun, woodpeckers are beginning their rhythmic tapping against tree trunks. These remarkable birds can peck up to 20 times per second, striking with a force that would cause severe brain injury in any other creature. But woodpeckers have evolved extraordinary adaptations. Spongy bone structures in their skulls act as shock absorbers, their brains fit tightly in their skulls with no room to rattle, and their tongue wraps around the back of their skull, providing additional cushioning. They've turned what would be destructive into something constructive, creating homes in trees, finding food in bark, communicating through percussion. What seems violent is actually precise, purposeful, even musical in its way. Fact 67. The holes these woodpeckers create become homes for dozens of other species. Cavity-nesting birds like chickadees and nuthatches, flying squirrels, even bees and wasps move into abandoned woodpecker holes. A single woodpecker, through its daily work of finding food and creating nest sites, provides housing for an entire community of creatures. It builds not just for itself but inadvertently for everyone. Some gifts are given without the giver knowing, some kindness happens simply through doing what comes naturally, through being fully what you are. Fact 68. In the undergrowth below these trees, ants are traveling in lines so orderly they seem almost deliberate. When an ant finds food, it returns to the nest leaving a trail of pheromones, chemical breadcrumbs that other ants can follow. The more ants that use a trail, the stronger the scent becomes, creating a positive feedback loop. But here's something remarkable. When a food source is depleted, ants stop reinforcing that trail, and the pheromone evaporates within minutes. The path disappears, and ants begin searching for new sources. They build highways and then let them fade when they're no longer needed. There's wisdom in impermanence, in building what serves the moment without clinging to it when circumstances change. Fact 69. Near these ant trails, mushrooms are emerging from the soil after morning rain. Fungi fruit quickly. A mushroom can appear overnight, pushing up through soil and leaf litter with surprising force. Some mushrooms can even push up through asphalt, their fruiting bodies strong enough to crack pavement. Yet they're so delicate that they'll wither within days. This combination of sudden strength and brief existence feels almost like a meditation on life itself, to emerge with force, to push through obstacles, to exist brilliantly for a short time, and then to dissolve back into the earth, having released millions of spores that carry the possibility of future mushrooms. Brief does not mean insignificant. Fact 70. Across the forest floor, fallen logs are decomposing slowly, becoming what's called nurse logs, fallen trees that provide nutrients and habitat for new growth. Seedlings often germinate on these logs, their roots reaching down through the rotting wood to the soil below. As the log decomposes over decades, it releases nutrients that feed the young trees growing from it. Eventually, the log disappears entirely, crumbled into soil, and what remains is a row of mature trees standing where it once lay. The old tree becomes the forest floor, and from its body, new life rises. Death is not an ending but a transformation, one form giving way to others, substance rearranged but never lost. Fact 71. In clearings where light reaches the forest floor, wildflowers are tracking the sun's movement across the sky. Young sunflowers famously follow the sun from east to west during the day, then reorient themselves eastward during the night to greet the dawn. This is called heliotropism. But once sunflowers mature and bloom, They stop moving and face east permanently. Scientists have discovered that east-facing flowers warm up faster in the morning sun, making them more attractive to pollinating insects. The flower's youthful dancing gives way to a mature stillness, a chosen orientation that serves a deeper purpose. Sometimes growth means learning when to stop moving, when to face one direction fully, when to commit. Fact 72. Among these flowers, bumblebees are working methodically, visiting blossom after blossom. Bumblebees can fly in cooler temperatures than honeybees. They can take flight when it's as cool as 50 degrees Fahrenheit by vibrating their large flight muscles to generate heat. They're often the first pollinators active in early spring and the last in late fall. Their large bodies are covered in branched hairs that trap pollen, making them exceptionally effective pollinators. A single bumblebee can visit thousands of flowers in a day. They work without complaint in conditions where others cannot, asking nothing more than nectar and pollen, providing an essential service to nearly every flowering plant. Dedication needs no audience, no applause. It simply is. Fact 73. As these bees move from flower to flower, they're making split-second decisions based on incredibly complex calculations. Bees can assess which flowers have already been visited, which have the most nectar, and plan efficient routes between flowers, solving what mathematicians call the traveling salesman problem. Their tiny brains can learn, remember, and even count. They can be taught to associate colors with rewards and to understand concepts like same and different. Inside a brain the size of a grass seed resides the ability to learn, to optimize, to remember, to teach others through dance what they've discovered. Consciousness, awareness, problem solving, these don't require large brains, just effective ones. As morning deepens into day, we've seen how creatures build communities, how they transform death into life, how they make decisions and solve problems with remarkable efficiency. The natural world operates with a wisdom that comes not from conscious thought but from millions of years of trial and refinement, and in watching it, we remember what we ourselves know but sometimes forget. As we move through mid-morning, the world is fully awake. Yet there remains a peaceful quality to these hours, a sense that nature continues its work without hurry, without anxiety, simply unfolding as it has for eons, one moment flowing seamlessly into the next. Fact 74. In ponds warmed by morning sun, water lilies have opened their flowers to the day. These aquatic plants have an ingenious design. Their large, flat leaves, called lily pads, float on the surface with a waxy coating that repels water. On the underside, air-filled chambers provide buoyancy and allow gases to exchange. The stems, called petioles, can stretch or shrink to adjust to changing water levels, keeping the leaves at the surface whether the pond is high or low. Water lilies have learned to live in the space between water and air, rooted in mud yet reaching toward light, flexible enough to adapt to constant change. They teach us that being grounded and being adaptable are not opposing qualities but complementary ones. Fact 75. Below these lily pads, in the cool water, fish are navigating through their underwater world using a sense we don't possess. Along each side of their body runs the lateral line, a sensory organ that detects vibrations and pressure changes in the water. Fish can sense the movement of other fish, the approach of predators, even the contours of rocks and plants in complete darkness. They feel the shape of their world through water itself, reading currents and eddies the way we might read a map. They possess an entire dimension of awareness that we can only imagine, a constant flow of information about their surroundings that never stops. We are surrounded by realities we cannot perceive, by senses we don't have, by ways of knowing the world that are completely foreign to our experience. Fact 76. At the pond's edge, a heron stands motionless, demonstrating patience that borders on the supernatural. This bird can stand perfectly still for an hour or more, waiting for a fish to swim within striking range. When it does strike, its neck unfolds with lightning speed. A heron's strike takes less than 1/10 of a second. But before that explosive moment comes such stillness, such quietude. The heron has learned that patience and sudden action are not opposites but partners. The stillness makes the strike possible. The waiting gives meaning to the movement. In a world that often celebrates constant activity, the heron reminds us that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is nothing at all until the precise moment when everything must happen at once. Fact 77. In meadows beyond the pond, grasses are swaying in the morning breeze, and these humble plants are among Earth's most successful organisms. Grasses evolved relatively recently, only about 66 million years ago, yet they've come to dominate roughly 40% of Earth's land surface. Their secret is resilience. Unlike most plants, grasses grow from the base rather than the tip, so they can be grazed, mowed, or burned, and they simply keep growing. They've turned what would destroy other plants into a manageable inconvenience. They've made peace with being consumed, with being cut down, with fire sweeping across them. They yield, they bend, they allow themselves to be reduced, and then they grow back. Survival sometimes means accepting loss and returning anyway. Fact 78. Among these grasses, crickets are beginning to warm up their singing muscles. Male crickets create their distinctive chirping by rubbing their wings together. A scraper on one wing rubs against a file-like ridge on the other, producing sound. But here's something remarkable. The rate of a cricket's chirp is directly related to the temperature. Crickets chirp faster in warm weather and slower when it's cool. You can actually estimate the temperature by counting cricket chirps. The formula varies by species, but for many, if you count the number of chirps in 14 seconds and add 40, you'll get the approximate temperature in Fahrenheit. These small musicians are thermometers, their songs calibrated to the warmth of the world, their rhythm set by the temperature of the air. They don't just live in the environment, they reflect it, embody it, translate it into sound. Fact 79. As we move toward woodland edges, we find blackberry brambles forming dense thickets. These plants grow with remarkable determination, their arching canes rooting where they touch the ground, creating new plants that remain connected to the parent. A single blackberry plant can spread to cover hundreds of square feet, creating an interconnected colony. The thorns that make them difficult for us to navigate serve as perfect habitat for small birds and mammals, a fortress of protection that many creatures call home. What seems hostile from the outside becomes sanctuary on the inside. The blackberry asks nothing, judges no one, it simply grows, spreads, produces fruit that feeds countless animals, and provides shelter with no conditions attached. Generosity is built into its very structure. Fact 80. In the cool shade of trees near these brambles, moss continues its quiet existence. When moss dries out completely, it doesn't die, it enters a state of suspended animation called desiccation tolerance. Some mosses can lose up to 98% of their water content and survive for years in this dormant state. When water returns, they absorb it directly through their leaves and resume photosynthesis within minutes or hours. They can be frozen, thawed, dried, and rehydrated repeatedly without damage. Moss teaches us something profound about resilience. Sometimes survival means having the ability to pause, to shut down completely, to wait without resentment or struggle through conditions that cannot be changed, trusting that when circumstances improve, life will return. Fact 81. Deeper in the forest, where shade is deepest, shelf fungi protrude from tree trunks like natural shelves. These bracket fungi can live for decades, adding a new layer of growth each year. Some species have been found that are over 50 years old. They're decomposers, slowly breaking down dead wood and recycling nutrients back into the ecosystem. But they work slowly, patiently, adding their growth ring by ring, year after year. Looking at the concentric bands on a shelf fungus is like reading tree rings. Each band represents a year of quiet work, of transformation, of turning the solid back to soil. They measure time differently than we do, and in their presence, we're reminded that important work doesn't always happen quickly, that some changes require decades, that patience itself can be a form of power. As mid-morning light filters through leaves and warms the earth, we've witnessed how life adapts to every condition, how patience and action dance together, how resilience takes many forms. The natural world continues its ancient patterns, and in observing them, we find ourselves slowing down, breathing deeper, remembering what it feels like to simply be. As we approach the final stretch of our journey, the day has found its rhythm. The urgency of dawn has passed, the world has settled into its patterns, and we find ourselves in that peaceful middle time when nature simply continues, steady, reliable, present. Let us explore these last chapters together, discovering the connections that bind all living things. Fact 82. In the canopy above, squirrels are busy with their work of gathering and hiding food. A single gray squirrel may create several thousand cache sites in a season, burying nuts and seeds throughout its territory. Remarkably, they remember the locations of most of these caches, using spatial memory and landmarks to relocate them months later. But they never find all of them. The forgotten seeds sprout, becoming the next generation of trees. Squirrels are unintentional forest planters, their imperfect memory ensuring that oaks and hickories spread across the landscape. Sometimes our failures serve purposes we cannot see, and what we forget becomes a gift to the future. Fact 83. These trees that squirrels help plant will live for centuries, growing slowly but steadily. Trees add wood in layers, creating annual rings that tell the story of their lives. Wide rings indicate good growing years with ample water, narrow rings reveal drought or stress. But trees don't experience time as we do. A tree that lives 300 years doesn't feel the passing of centuries, it simply exists in an eternal present, responding to each season as it comes, neither anticipating the future nor dwelling on the past. Each ring is simply the present moment made solid, a record of now that accumulates into history. The tree teaches us that we don't create the future by worrying about it, we create it by being fully present in each moment as it arrives. Fact 84. Among the roots of these trees, a different kind of communication is happening. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical signals through the fungal network in the soil, warning neighboring trees of the threat. The warned trees then begin producing defensive chemicals before they're even attacked, preparing themselves based on their neighbor's experience. This happens silently, invisibly, beneath our feet, a community sharing information, protecting one another, learning from each other's challenges. We are not the only species that looks out for our neighbors, that shares what we know, that warns others of danger even when we ourselves are under threat. Fact 85. In clearings between these connected trees, dandelions are thriving, those cheerful yellow flowers that many call weeds. But dandelions are remarkable survivors. Every part of the plant is edible and nutritious. Their deep taproots, which can reach 15 feet down, bring up nutrients from deep in the soil, making them available to shallow-rooted plants when the dandelion dies and decomposes. Their seeds, attached to delicate parachutes, can travel up to 5 miles on the wind. Each flower head contains up to 200 seeds, and a plant can produce 15,000 seeds per year. They're called weeds because they're too successful, too adaptable, too good at surviving. They grow where we don't want them simply because they can grow almost anywhere. There's a kind of joy in their persistence, in their refusal to be diminished, in their ability to find a home wherever they land. Fact 86. As these dandelion seeds drift on the breeze, they join other travelers in the air. The sky is full of life we rarely notice: billions of insects, spiders ballooning on silk threads, pollen, seeds, bacteria, and fungal spores. Scientists call this the aeroplankton, the community of tiny organisms and particles drifting through the atmosphere. Some bacteria and fungal spores have been found at altitudes of over 20 miles. They circle the globe, crossing oceans, moving between continents. The air is not empty space but a living river, carrying life from place to place, connecting distant ecosystems, ensuring that life spreads to every possible habitat. We think of the ocean as the great connector of the world, but the atmosphere connects everything that breathes. Fact 87. Back on solid ground, in gardens and wild places alike, earthworms continue their essential work. Charles Darwin wasn't exaggerating when he called them one of the most important animals on Earth. Worms don't just create tunnels, they actually eat soil, digest the organic matter it contains, and excrete nutrient-rich castings that are far more fertile than the soil they consumed. Their digestive process makes nutrients more available to plants. A healthy population of earthworms can process over 40 tons of soil per acre per year, constantly renewing the Earth's fertility. They've been doing this work for over 600 million years, since long before plants colonized the land. They prepared the soil for the forests, for the fields, for the gardens. Every plant that grows owes something to worms, yet they work in darkness, unacknowledged, asking nothing. Fact 88. In streams that cut through these fertile lands, caddisfly larvae are building their protective cases from whatever materials they find: tiny pebbles, bits of wood, grains of sand. Each species has its preferred building materials and architectural style. They cement these materials together with silk they produce, creating a portable home they carry with them as they crawl along the stream bottom. When threatened, they retreat inside. When they've grown too large, they build a bigger case. Some artists have placed caddisfly larvae in aquariums with gold flakes and precious gems, and the larvae incorporate these materials into their cases, creating tiny jeweled sculptures. The larvae don't care about value, they simply use what's available, transforming whatever they find into protection. Beauty and utility become inseparable when you build your home from the world around you. Fact 89. Near these streams, in the damp soil of the bank, salamanders are resting in their underground burrows. Some species of salamander can regenerate lost limbs, tails, even parts of their heart and brain. When a leg is severed, cells at the wound site multiply and differentiate, rebuilding complex structures: bone, muscle, nerve, skin in perfect proportion and arrangement. Scientists study salamanders to understand how this remarkable ability works, hoping to unlock secrets that might someday help humans heal. But for the salamander, regeneration is simply what happens. It doesn't marvel at its own ability, doesn't consider it miraculous. It loses a leg and grows a new one, as naturally as we might heal a paper cut. What we call extraordinary is, for some creatures, simply ordinary, a reminder that the line between mundane and miraculous depends entirely on perspective. As we near the end of our journey together, we've witnessed how creatures support each other, how life spreads across the planet, how the smallest workers enable the grandest creations. The world is interconnected in ways we're only beginning to understand, and every living thing plays its part in the great pattern. As we approach the completion of our peaceful journey through nature's wonders, we find ourselves reflecting on the grand cycles, the ancient patterns, and the quiet lessons that have sustained life on Earth for billions of years. These final moments together invite us to see the whole tapestry, to understand our place within it. Fact 90. In the soil beneath our feet exists a world older than forests, older than animals, older than almost anything we can see. Bacteria have been on Earth for over 3.5 billion years, and they've shaped the planet into a place where complex life can exist. Ancient cyanobacteria produced the oxygen that fills our atmosphere through billions of years of photosynthesis. Every breath we take is possible because of these microscopic beings that transformed Earth's atmosphere from toxic to breathable. They didn't do it for us, they simply lived their lives, and the accumulated effect of countless tiny actions over incomprehensible time changed everything. The smallest actors can have the largest impacts when their work continues long enough. Fact 91. In oceans that cover most of our blue planet, phytoplankton continue this ancient work. These microscopic algae and bacteria are so small that millions can fit in a single drop of water, yet collectively they produce more than half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, more than all the forests combined. They form the base of the ocean food web, supporting everything from tiny zooplankton to the largest whales. They're invisible to the naked eye, yet without them, most life on Earth would cease to exist. We walk through the world seeing trees and thinking they provide our air, never knowing that the real source is drifting in waters we may never visit, organisms we will never see. The most essential things are often invisible. Fact 92. These same oceans hold creatures that connect us to the deep past. Horseshoe crabs have existed virtually unchanged for 450 million years, predating dinosaurs by 200 million years. They survived the mass extinction that killed the dinosaurs, and they're still here, crawling along sandy ocean floors as they have for eons. Their blue blood contains special cells that detect bacterial toxins, and this property has made them invaluable to medicine. Every vaccine and injectable drug is tested using horseshoe crab blood to ensure it's free of contamination. These ancient creatures, older than mountains, now help protect human health. The past reaches forward to care for the present in ways we never expected. Fact 93. On beaches where horseshoe crabs come ashore to spawn, shorebirds gather by the thousands. Red knots fly from the Arctic to the southern tip of South America and back each year, a round trip of nearly 20,000 miles. They time their migration to arrive at certain beaches precisely when horseshoe crabs are laying eggs, which provide essential fuel for their journey. If they miss this window, many won't survive. The lives of a bird and an ancient arthropod are linked across millions of years of evolution, their schedules synchronized, their fates intertwined. Everything is connected to everything else in ways both obvious and hidden, and when one thread is pulled, the whole web trembles. Fact 94. In the sky through which these birds migrate, the sun rises and sets, driving the cycle that shapes all life. But the sun itself is changing. It's been growing slowly brighter throughout Earth's history, and it will continue to do so. In about 1 billion years, it will be so bright that Earth's oceans will evaporate. Our planet's time as a living world is not infinite. But for now, for our moment in time and countless moments to come, the sun is precisely the right brightness, at precisely the right distance, providing precisely the right amount of energy. We live in a temporary window of habitability, and every creature alive today shares this brief, precious time when conditions are just right. Now is not eternal, but now is enough. Fact 95. Under this sun, seasons turn in their eternal rhythm. Deciduous trees prepare for winter by withdrawing chlorophyll from their leaves, revealing the yellows and oranges that were there all along, hidden beneath the green. The brilliant reds and purples are created anew each autumn through chemical reactions triggered by cool nights and bright days. Trees don't create this beauty for us, they're reclaiming nutrients before their leaves fall, preparing for winter's scarcity. Yet we call it beautiful anyway. The tree's practical efficiency becomes our aesthetic wonder. Function and beauty are not opposites but aspects of the same process, and we're fortunate enough to witness and appreciate both. Fact 96. As leaves fall and decompose, they join the layer of organic matter on the forest floor. This leaf litter is home to countless decomposers, springtails, millipedes, beetles, fungi, bacteria, all working to break down dead material and return its nutrients to the soil. A single fallen leaf might take a year or more to decompose completely, passing through the digestive systems of dozens of creatures, being broken down by countless microorganisms, gradually transforming from a recognizable leaf to soil. Nothing is wasted in nature. Death is not an ending but a transformation, and every ending feeds a new beginning. The cycle has no start and no finish, it simply continues, each generation nourishing the next. Fact 97. In this continuous cycle, we find perhaps nature's deepest lesson. Everything is temporary, yet nothing is lost. Water moves from ocean to cloud to rain to river and back to ocean. Carbon moves from air to plant to animal to soil and back to air. Energy flows from sun to plant to herbivore to predator and finally to decomposers, who release it as heat. The same atoms that make up our bodies were once parts of stars, and before that, were present at the beginning of the universe. We are not separate from nature, we are nature, briefly gathered into this particular form, eventually to be scattered and reformed into countless new forms. This isn't something to fear but something to find peace in. We are part of something larger than ourselves, something that continues, something that endures. We've journeyed through an entire cycle now, from the deepest night to the full light of day, from the smallest bacteria to the largest whales, from ancient organisms unchanged for millions of years to the constant transformation that defines life itself. Every fact we've explored whispers the same truth. Life persists, adapts, cooperates, and continues. Nature doesn't struggle against its circumstances, it works with them, finding beauty and function in the same solutions, turning obstacles into opportunities, transforming endings into beginnings. As our time together draws to a close, remember that these patterns continue, whether we observe them or not. The trees keep growing, the rivers keep flowing, the cycles keep turning. And you, too, are part of these patterns, breathing air created by ancient organisms, made of atoms forged in stars, connected to every living thing through shared ancestry and shared needs. As we arrive at the end of our journey together, the day continues around us. But before we part, there are 3 final truths to carry with us, gentle reminders of what nature has been teaching us all along. Fact 98. In every ecosystem on Earth, from the deepest ocean to the highest mountain, there exists a principle called ecological succession. When a landscape is disturbed by fire, by flood, by volcanic eruption, life doesn't give up. It returns. First come the pioneers, lichens, mosses, small hardy plants that can survive in difficult conditions. They change the environment, making it suitable for other species. Those species arrive and change things further, and gradually, over years or decades or centuries, complexity returns. A forest can rise from ash. A meadow can emerge from bare rock. Life doesn't require perfect conditions to begin, it only requires a starting point and time. What seems destroyed is simply in the earliest stage of renewal. Fact 99. Throughout the natural world, there's a beautiful phenomenon called mutualism, relationships where both species benefit, where cooperation creates something neither could achieve alone. The bee gets nectar while pollinating the flower. The clownfish gets protection while cleaning the anemone. The oxpecker bird eats parasites off the rhino while alerting it to danger. Fungi trade nutrients with tree roots in exchanges that benefit both. Again and again, across millions of species, we see the same pattern. Life thrives not through domination but through partnership, not through taking but through exchange. The natural world runs on reciprocity, on relationships where giving and receiving become the same act. In nature's economy, generosity is not idealism, it's pragmatism. It simply works better. Fact 100. And finally, perhaps the most important truth of all, nature has no hurry, yet everything is accomplished. A seed doesn't force itself to grow, it waits for the right conditions and then unfolds naturally. A river doesn't rush to reach the ocean, it flows at the pace that gravity and landscape allow, arriving exactly when it arrives. Birds migrate thousands of miles not by flying frantically but by flying steadily, resting when they need to rest, trusting that consistent effort over time will carry them home. Seasons don't skip steps or try to accelerate, spring follows winter, summer follows spring, each in its time, each complete and unhurried. Nature accomplishes extraordinary things not through stress or force but through patience, through showing up consistently, through working with rather than against the rhythms of the world. And so we come to the end of our 100 peaceful truths, though of course there are millions more we haven't touched. Every stone and stream, every creature and cloud, every moment of every day holds countless wonders we could explore forever and never exhaust. But perhaps what matters most is not the specific facts we've learned tonight, but the feeling they create, the sense of being part of something vast and ancient and ongoing, something that existed long before us and will continue long after. In nature's presence, our worries seem smaller. Our timelines expand. We remember that we don't have to solve everything today, force everything now, understand everything immediately. The trees will grow whether we watch them or not. The tides will turn according to the moon's pull, indifferent to our schedules and concerns. The earthworms will continue their patient work in darkness, improving the soil grain by grain. The mycelium will keep trading nutrients through the forest floor, connecting and supporting, invisible and essential. And you are part of this too. Made of the same elements, following the same patterns, subject to the same cycles. You need rest, just like the flowers that close at night. You need nourishment, just like the trees drawing water from deep soil. You need time to grow, just like the forest that rises from bare ground through succession, stage by stage, year by year. There's no rush. Everything unfolds in its own time. As you prepare for sleep, or simply for rest, remember what nature has shown us, that darkness is not an ending but a preparation for light. That stillness is not emptiness but the foundation for growth. That letting go of the day, of control, of constant effort is not giving up but trusting the process. The world will continue its ancient work while you rest. The cycles will turn. And tomorrow, when you wake, everything will be exactly where it needs to be, including you. May you rest as peacefully as the forest rests in winter, knowing that spring will come. May you trust your own rhythms as the tides trust the moon. May you be as patient with yourself as the river is patient with the stone, knowing that even the hardest obstacles are worn smooth with time. Thank you for journeying through these 100 peaceful truths with me. The natural world is always there, always offering its lessons, always demonstrating what it means to simply be fully, presently, without apology or hurry. Rest well. Grow slowly. Trust the process. The world is taking care of itself, and you are part of that world.